Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the briefing for Operation Finest Hour. As you know, our operations in Angola are about to come to a conclusion. With the coming arrival of a Chinese peacekeeping fleet and their air forces, it's very likely they'll enforce a no-fly zone that will shut down our air operations. That's why we've only got one mission left on the table, and it's an important one. As you know, the situation is in the balance here in Angola. Von Hoff and Mbeki's ground forces have made enormous gains in the last few days, and they're within striking distance of Luanda. But the dictator realizes that it is literally do or die time for him, and he is not going to give up without a fight. He and his loyal forces have dug in all along both of the coastal highways, and from what we know from air reconnaissance, this is going to be a tough nut to crack. There are bunkers, pillboxes, dug-in armor, dug-in infantry, and a great deal of SPAA and SAMs protecting his forces there. Von Hoff and Mbeki's ground forces don't have the heavy weapons to clear out this fortress. The only thing they've got that can clear the way is us. So it's up to us to be Von Hoff and Mbeki's flying artillery and allow him to get to the capital in time. We are racing against the clock, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got to come in first. That's why Operation Finest Hour has two objectives. Number one, eliminate the Angolan hardpoints of resistance. Number two, provide close air support to the Count's ground forces as they advance. If they see a target, we gotta kill it. We do have some rules of engagement and flight restrictions that we'll be flying under today. Number one, no aircraft are to fly within 50 nautical miles of Luanda until the Golongo Alto radar station has been cleared out. Number two, you have a restricted area that begins on Coastal Highway number 2, moving to the east, in the area controlled by the Free State and the dictator. We are not flying east on this operation, gentlemen. We are focusing on the Western Coastal Highway and its associated corridor. Any Angolan Air Force aircraft that you spot, armed or unarmed, are to be engaged and destroyed ASAP if it is threatening you and your forces. For pilots bombing ground targets, only focus on strictly military targets. No schools, no hospitals, no bridges. And I would like you to focus on their frontline ground combat elements. FOBs and other support facilities are a secondary objective. It is more important that we clear out dug-in tank platoons, bunkers, and other hard targets blocking Mbeki and Von Hoff's advance, rather than focusing on softer support targets. If we spot any SA-11 Gadfly batteries, and from what our intelligence says, there's a large concentration of them around Luanda, those batteries are only to be engaged by aircraft that have standoff weaponry with a range longer than 30 nautical miles. That means our cruise missiles, our Kafirs with their Spice glide bombs, or the GBU-39s, the small diameter bombs that we have in the Gripens. We have a hard ceiling for this operation. A hard deck for this operation. No aircraft are to go below 12,000 feet AGL unless they have to deploy their weapons. We do not want aircraft flying over the treetops taking heavy anti-aircraft fire. We do have some MCOM restrictions for this operation. Unless otherwise specialized, radars are to remain off. Shackleton Flight, our Argus, is to engage its radar once it takes off and reaches Point Lucas. Mosquito Flight, our Prowler, will be turning on its OECM pods once it reaches Point Limpt, and will be staying there for the duration of the operation, providing jamming support. All other aircraft are only to turn their radars on unless they need to engage a ground or air target. Otherwise, turn that shit off. We're going to have two pre-deployments for today's operation. Both of our UAVs, Lysander Flight and Oster Flight, will be moved up to Point Duxford to provide reconnaissance for our ground forces as they move north. Ladies and gentlemen, here are your aircraft call sign and loadout assignments for today's operation. Shackleton Flight, the Saab 100 Argus. Lysander Flight, the MQ-9 Reaper. Oster Flight, the Sperver. Spitfire Flight, 4 Gripens carrying the maximum meteor loadout. Hurricane Flight. At the start of the operation, gentlemen, you'll be flying the German Tornadoes carrying the Taurus cruise missiles. If you have the opportunity to RTB and rearm, we'll have you re-equip with the GBU-24 2,000-pound paveway laser-guided bombs for close air support operations. Kitty Hawk Flight, 2 Gripens carrying 8 small-diameter bombs apiece, followed by Martlet Flight, 2 more Gripens, also with the max SDB loadout. Gladiator Flight, our 4 Kafirs carrying 2 Spice glide bombs each. Our tankers, TriStar Flight, the KC-135, and Valiant Flight, the VC-10K4. Our jamming support with Mosquito Flight, the EA-6B Prowler carrying the maximum jamming pod equipment. Meteor Flight for close air support, 2 Saudis, each with the maximum and 12 brimstones. Whirlwind Flight, our Su-26 with 16 Vickers anti-tank missiles. Defiant Flight, our Hawk with 2 AGM-65 Maverick tank missiles. Firefly Flight, 3 of our SK-60 Bravos with 30mm Aiden gun pods, followed by Tempest Flight, our remaining 2 SK-60 Bravos carrying 145mm anti-tank rockets. Bowfire Flight, our 2 AMX-A11s carrying the JDAM JBU-16s. Finally, our other Hurricane Flight, 3 Phantoms with GBU-10s, and another group of Phantoms, 3 more, with GBU-10s as well. As a final note, all aircraft, please use quick turnarounds if possible to RTB and rearm, and Spitfire Flight, our cap, is to be set to refuel at 30 fuel. Here's the general timeline of operations we're going to follow today. At 0700, Shackleton Flight will take off and head to Point Leuchars to provide AEW&C. At 0700, Lysander Flight and Oster Flight will also take off, joining the Count's advance and linking up with his forces to spot anything on the ground. At 0702, Spitfire Flight will take off and head for Point Tangmere. At 0715, Hurricane Flight will take off and head to Point Kenley via Point Marham. At 0725, Kitty Hawk Flight and Martlet Flight will take off and head to Point Pembry. 5 minutes later, at 0730, Gladiator Flight takes off to Point Biggin Hill. 5 minutes after that, at 0735, Mosquito Flight takes off and heads to Point Lympne. At 0745, we make our largest deployment of aircraft. Meteor Flight, Whirlwind Flight, Defiant Flight, Firefly Flight, Tempest Flight, Beaufighter Flight, Hurricane Flight, and Fulmar Flight will all take off and point to head Detling. That will be their cab rank point. Once they hit Point Detling, they will orbit there. If Von Hoff's ground forces, the Sperver, or the Reaper spot any ground targets, aircraft will be peeled off to engage ground targets. If they have ordnance, they'll head back to the cab rank and continue orbiting. If they fired everything, they'll RTB to rearm, get their weapons, and get back to the fight. Point Detling will be mobile. It will be 20 nautical miles behind the front line at all times, advancing north at the same speed as Von Hoff's ground forces. At 0800, we'll begin to launch our tankers. TriStar Flight will take off to Point Lympne. At 082, Valiant Flight will take off and head to Point Leuchars. Once Hurricane Flight reaches Point Kenley, a few minutes later, it'll launch its TARS cruise missiles to hit the radar at Colungo Alto. Once all aircraft have reached Point Detland, or maybe more accurately Point Detling, they'll attack any targets spotted by our Spervers, and again, as I said earlier, RTB to rearm once they're out of ground ordnance. When Kitty Hawk Flight reaches Point Pembry, it will take out the Southern Bridge Command. When Martlet Flight reaches Point Pembry, it'll go after the Northern Bridge Command. That should clear out the Angolan headquarters and allow us to continue moving along those unblown ridges. When Gladiator Flight reaches Biggin Hill, it'll bomb Caballetto Airfield and take out anything on that base, focusing primarily on the airfield, but any other targets of opportunity that it can see. As the operation continues, any aircraft, with the exception of Whirlwind Flight, Hurricane Flight, and Fulmar Flight, will return to Benguela, rearm, and rejoin the cab rank heading at Point Detling. Whirlwind Flight will RTB once it's out of ammo. Hurricane Flight and Fulmar Flight, this is the Phantoms, will remain on station to provide cap with their AIM-20 AMRAAMs. After we've burned the ordnance for Hurricane, Kitty Hawk, Martlet, and Gladiator, we'll return to Benguela and rejoin the taxi rank at Point Detling, as I said earlier, and continue engaging any ground targets until the conclusion of the operation. Gentlemen, as I said before, this mission is absolutely crucial for us. This is our last chance to take Luanda. If Von Hoff can take Luanda, he takes the country. If not, everything we fought for will be in jeopardy. Go to your aircraft. We take off in a few minutes. Good luck, everyone.